how are you going to invest in and uplift the very community that you're exploiting? That's why some Black people become sellouts. It's very hard to do both, babe. It's very hard. Welcome, 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 Black. Welcome, Black. Welcome back to my channel. I'm excited for today's video because it's going to be a lot of information. You're going to learn something, but you're also going to engage in this conversation, and I want your comments down below. Why do some Black people become sellouts once they make it big, get wealthy, get rich? We're going to be going over what is a sellout and what the lower underneath question of this is, which is, do Black people have a responsibility to give back to their community when they get big in the first place? So sit back, relax, get ready to like this video, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends. Do everything that needs to be done for me to know that you like this video, please. Okay, but you also don't have to because it's a free country. All right, anyway, without further ado, let's get to it. So let's talk about the history of the racial wealth gap in America first. According to an article called The Limits of Homeownership, Racial Capitalism, Black Wealth, and the Appreciation Gap in Atlanta, I know, a long title, to be legally categorized as Black was to be an object of property, whereas to be legally categorized as white was to be rendered eligible to acquire property, i.e. wealth, recognized and protected by the state. And this was apparent throughout many of the 20th century. So for many years, essentially what this is saying is that Black people could not even be seen as a legit person to be able to own property, let alone accumulate wealth. And I said this is apparent in the 19th century and the 20th century. So not just the 20th century, but most of the 19th century and before. Because of the fact that with the birth of America, Black people were literally slaves or enslaved and had to really move our way to freedom. Black people, because of that, have struggled to attain wealth and financial freedom, period. And I'm talking specifically about history because it's important, but even if we're looking at compared to now, the Black and white economic divide is actually as big and as wide as it was in 1968. And I know this because there's an article entitled "The Black-White Economic Divide is as Big as It Was in 1968." And this article is by Heather Long and Andrew Van Dam. So the article compares a middle-class Black and white family from 1968 to a middle-class Black and white family in 2016. So it says that in 1968, a typical middle-class Black family made an income of around $6,674 compared to a middle-class white family in 1968 that made an income of around $70,000. So again, a huge gap. We're talking about $6,000 compared to $70,000. So we compare that price that was in 1968 to now the price that was recorded in 2016. An average middle-class black family income was around $13,000, while a middle-class white family's average income was around a whopping $149,000. Even bigger than the gap was in 1968. And the article will be down below if you want to check it out for yourself. All the articles I mentioned in this video will be down below, but it is essentially literally saying that the historical data reveal that no progress has been made in reducing income and wealth inequalities between Black and white households over the past 70 years. All in all, Black people in comparison to white people in America, when we look at wealth, the wealth gap, it's rough, okay? Black people do not have as much money as white people, and that's been historically and even to this day. So as a result of these statistics, it makes sense that when we see a black billionaire, black millionaire as black people, we might be inclined to be like, oh my gosh, like I want to aspire to that. That's really amazing. How did they do it? And, want to achieve financial freedom as black Americans, because for so long and still to this day, we haven't really been able to do that when we look in comparison to our white counterparts. So now we're going to talk about the problem. We went over some statistics and some of the historical context. So what's the problem? So first, I'm going to start with this question of, should black people be obligated to give back to their community when they make a lot of money? Now, a lot of people, scholars, activists, things like this, believe that it's going to take black people and only black people investing and knowing what our community needs in order to foster success. Now, I think this is also apparent for many other communities. So maybe a lot of like Latino and Latina folks feel like, okay, there need to be, in order for you to really know what our community needs, you need to be Latino or Latina, or for example. I know a lot of people within maybe the Jewish community have done this as well throughout history that a lot of people point to. So as a result, this is not a new phenomenon, but a lot of people feel this way, that it's going to take black people investing in our own community. And of course, to be able to invest in your own community, you got to have money. And so I think that's why a lot of people look to these black wealthy people, black billionaires, as like a, hey, you should give back to us because of a lot of reasons I'm going to list. Now, personally, if you ask me, I agree with this because I think that, I think just for understanding, maybe it's because I have a background in learning about African American studies, we as black people all have a shared experience. Not that we've all experienced life the same, because I talk about how we do not, based on our different intersections. But we all at least can say that we have a shared experience of racism, possibly. So I think because of that, it's important that we band together, and I think we really know what we need as a community. So for that reason, I believe that we as black people should all do our part. Again, whether that's giving money, giving education, giving something back to help one another rise up. Again, that's just me personally. Comment down below if you think that's the case. So because that's the case for me, that's what I'm going to be going on in this video. But yes, like I said, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that. If you think black people should not have the responsibility or the pressure or the obligation to give back to their own community. So now let's talk about why some black people become sellouts, okay? And when I say sellouts, I mean you got wealthy and then you don't really have any connection or any reason, publicly at least, to fight for black people, to talk about black people, to give back to black people. If you're kind of just out here living, a lot of people might say, depending on the people you have around you, if there's no black people, maybe you're a sellout, whatever. But that's what I would define as a sellout, I'll say, for myself. So I will say, starting off, the reality is, in America, everything's racially divided. A lot of things are racially divided. More than likely, if you are a black successful person, you relied on black people to get you there. More than likely, even if it was your black family, maybe your auntie helped give you some money to be able to start that business, or, maybe a scholarship in a school that catered for black students helped you get that money to be able to go to college, to be able to whatever. A lot of times it took your community making you where you are. Again, that doesn't mean that you didn't work hard on your own. That just means, you probably had some help from some people, from your people a little bit, which is fine. I think some good examples of this, some I just listed, but also if we're gonna look at musicians, for example. So let's say you're a musician and a lot of the music that you make is about your experience, maybe your black experience, whether it was, having to do whatever, okay? We all know, we all hear that. If you're making that music, talking about your experience as a black person, again, maybe if it's not explicitly saying, hey, I was black and I experienced this, but talking about some things that maybe other black people can relate to, there are probably some black people who love and can relate to your music and helped you get to your level of success. Either that, or just by you being a Black person and making music and maybe inspiring other Black people, being that representation for them, for us, maybe we as Black people helped you get to your point, helped you get to be that billionaire, that whatever. Maybe we bought your music, bought your records, went to your concerts, etc. And of course, a lot of people probably did, but again, Black people probably really did. So as a result, it makes sense once you get to that level to then possibly have Black people looking at you like, hey, I was bumping your music since the early 2000s. Hey, I was at your concert. Hey, I was whatever. Now that you're up here, help me out. It's natural to think that. It's natural to think that. And let me be clear that when I say giving back to the Black community, giving back to the people that helped you get there, I mean in terms of like investing in Black-owned businesses, helping fund, Black college students or Black high school students with their education, or giving back to Black charities or Black-owned charities, or Black people who are within the community giving out resources, like things like that. Things that will literally help Black people. And again, this can be said not just for Black musicians. I'm not gonna be calling anyone out in this video. This could be said for any Black person who is, wealthy. And I feel like, and what's a very real thing that I feel like people talk about is that when you get wealthy, even as a Black person, one, you probably have a lot of people around you who want to keep getting paid and want to be in your circle, so they're going to be yes men, which means they're going to say yes to everything you do and maybe not tell you or remind you like, hey, by the way, didn't you say that when you got up you were going to do this, or don't you think maybe you should invest in this business, or don't you, whatever. They might not be saying that, again, because they want to stay around you. And when you get up there to the top, when you get up there with all the wealthy business, all the other wealthy billionaires or whatever, a lot of them are white men. And rich white men probably do not care, more than likely 99 probably percent, wealthy, super wealthy, rich white men probably do not care about the people at the bottom, and I don't mean anyone's really at the bottom, but I mean the people who are the workers, Black people, poor Black people, and people of color, things like this. They probably don't care. And if you're trying to be like them as a Black wealthy person, trying to fit in, you're probably maybe going to try to align yourself with their values and their goals in order to get what they have, or just to be like, okay, this is the kind of attitude I need to have, which is unfortunate. #watch your circle, okay? So those are some reasons why I personally think that some Black people become sellouts, but I'm going to give like another big reason, which is essentially, I think, the main reason. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, capitalism and exploitation go hand in hand. They are besties, okay? They are the opposite side of a coin, yin and yang, period. And I'm gonna tell you why. There's an article that I'm going to quote to help me kind of explain why capitalism is exploitation and how that fits into this. And it has a long title yet again. It's called What, If Anything, is Wrong with Capitalism? Dysfunctionality, Exploitation, and Alienation, 3 Approaches to the Critique of Capitalism. And this article is by Rahel Jeji. Child labor is exploitation. Whoever allows their products to be manufactured in sweatshops of the impoverished countries in the global south or purchases such products profits from the exploitation of local populations. Now, that example is something that is apparent, obviously, if you own like a really big business, which some people do, but also if, let's say there's a really big business and then they decide to put like a Black person as the face of it or something, or encourages Black people to buy their products, that's essentially using a Black face in that example to help propel their capitalist agenda, because as we all know, the Black dollar is powerful in the sense that when Black people get their money together, they can really make a business go far. And there's another really important piece here that they mention in the article that I'm going to read and explain. Capitalism thus exploits human beings by depriving them of the fruits of their own labor in an unfair and unjust way, and they are forced as if by extortion into enslavement by a system that in a variety of ways defrauds them of that to which they are entitled. So for the most part, I think a lot of what this is saying is that there are a lot of ways that people are exploited. So of course, like children in sweatshops and things like this are exploitation 100%. But also, a lot of these jobs, well, okay, jobs that people don't want to do, air quotes around that, of course, but maybe if you are, someone who delivers something, someone who cleans something up, a facility or things like that. A lot of times the wage you're gonna get for doing these jobs is not fair. You are being exploited in a way. But a lot of times you have to do these jobs and work very hard in order to try to feed your family, things like this. And we know a lot of these jobs, unfortunately, a lot of people who are underrepresented, minorities, air quotes around that, putting air quotes around all these words because I don't always like those words, but it's easy to explain. But a lot of Black people have these jobs. So a lot of Black people are being exploited by these systems, with these big institutions. And I think a lot of times it's hard to talk about this because everyone's like, well, duh, which is real. Sometimes it's just like, hey, look, I gotta work. Or yeah, everyone's being exploited, like that's America. But the reality is that if you're making a lot of money, a lot of times to get to that point, many times, most of the time, to get to that point, someone was exploited. And usually those are Black people. So it creates this dichotomy when you are a Black person who's wealthy and then also is exploiting Black people. So with that being said, this is the harsh statement that is essentially an answer to the question of this video. This is really the answer to this video. All that I said essentially brings us to this point right here, which is, how are you going to invest in and uplift the very community that you're exploiting? That's why some Black people become sellouts. It's very hard to do both, babe. It's very hard. It's hard on a mental level because mentally you're making all this money and you're looking at these people who are at the bottom, who are just eating it all up. And it's hard on an action-based level because no matter what you give to that community, possibly, it's gonna seem like crumbs with how much you're probably taking. So I'm not saying it's impossible because I think people do it, but I think you have to have a change in mindset. I think you have to not look at money as the goal, like the more money you have, the better. I think that can't be your goal. I think your goal in your head literally has to be like, I'm doing this for Black people. I'm doing this for people to be able to do this for themselves. And it's hard mentally to have that mindset because you're being able to provide for your family. You're being able to have the big house. You're being able to have a successful business. It's hard to then be look back and be like, I gotta make sure everyone else has this. But if you do that, that's amazing. So now let's get some takeaways because I always want you to be able to take something away. It's a lot of information. So now what can we do? First off, I think this is something that I think our generation is doing very, very well. I think we need to stop looking at these Black billionaires to give us money and resources. I think it's great if they do, but I think we need to invest within ourselves. I think we just need to do it ourselves and not be like, well, once I get really, really big, I think we just need to start now. And that's not to throw shade on people if you do, or if you do. I think back in the day, I feel like the idea that a Black person could accumulate so much wealth was just extraordinary to even think about because it's wow, how did you do that? So it makes sense to look at that person and be like, oh my gosh, please help, or there's gotta be something you can do. So I think if you do look at a wealthy person and you're want to aspire to that, but also feel I wish they would give us money. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's natural, but I just think that we have to start, being well, we can do it too. I can do it too, even though I'm not that billionaire. I can do that myself now, because Lord knows I am not rich. Another takeaway, if you just happen to be a Black billionaire watching this video or a Black wealthy person, first off, send your girl some money. Here's my Venmo, okay? So just go ahead, just gonna throw that in there, okay? But if you're not really sure, like, okay, I have this money, but like, I wanna do something, but maybe I don't know. Maybe all you need to really do is give maybe money to the organizations that are doing things to help the Black community. So maybe that means giving your money, or some of your money, of course, to, you know, a charity that's run by Black people or that specifically helps Black people, or, you know, an organization that helps to invest in Black businesses, support Black businesses, organizations that are giving money to Black college students, Black scholarships, high school students, things like this. So I don't even think, you know, I think it's sometimes hard to just be like, well, where do I start? Like, what do I do? You can start with giving some donations to those organizations who you know for sure. Maybe you do a little research or hire someone to do some research for you and make sure that they actually are doing something to help the community. But also, this is something that, you know, we as Black people who are not super wealthy can do ourselves as well. And with that being said, I get to my third takeaway, which is comment down below. What do you think we can do? What are some organizations that you know of that actually are doing something to help the Black community? Let's have this be a community of knowledge where we are helping one another learn as much as we all can. I will put in the in the description some organizations maybe that I know of or have heard of, or some resources that can help. But yes, let's, you know, we don't have to get all the way up there to start giving back to our community. We can do it at whatever level that we are at. So yes, thank you. Let me know, comment down below. Well, let me know what your feelings, what your thoughts are. I want to know, I want to hear them. Why do some Black people become sellouts? Is it a responsibility for a Black person once they get up there to give back to their community? Do you think so? Do you not think so? Yeah, let me know. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, comment, share, whatever you want to do to let me know that you see me, because I see you, okay? All right. Well, thank you so much. I will see you all soon.